Hello class, today we're going to be talking about fossils. We'll be reading Curious About Fossils by Kate Waters. Curious About Fossils. Can you see a shape in this rock? How about that one? Whose tooth is this? All of these things are fossils, and that's a T-Rex tooth. Let's find out what fossils can tell us about life on Earth. Let's take a look at what we see. Skeleton. These are Apatosaurus bones. Here's a skull. Fossils are evidence of life from the past. They give us clues about animals and plants that lived on Earth long ago. Some fossils were part of an animal or a plant. They can be bones, shells, teeth, tree trunks, and other hard parts of living things. Fossils can also be tracks and traces left by animals. Other fossils are like a mold. The object has decayed, but its shape remains. Sometimes animals are trapped in tree resin. It hardens around them. Even a tree can harden into rock. So this was made from tree resin, insects and tree resin. Here's a mold fossil. And then here's a tree fossil or petrified wood. Takes many years for a fossil to form. When a plant or animal dies on land or in water, sediment slowly covers it. Sediment can be sand, mud, silt, or clay. Sediment builds up on top of the animal or plant remains. It gets heavier and heavier. The layer below, where the animal or plant came to rest, turns into rock. Either the hard part of the plant or animal or its shape is now captured in the rock. After many years, the layers of sediment slowly erode. Fossils appear. An earthquake can also expose fossils. So can construction work in buildings and tunnels. So this part is really important because we're going to be doing a little activity with sedimentary rocks. Fossils help tell about creatures that lived long ago, and that can mean big discoveries. In the 19th century, most people did not know dinosaurs had once existed. Mary Anning lived in England then. She was a curious girl from a poor family. This is a letter and drawing by her about one of the fossils she found. She looked for things along the seashore that she could sell. She picked up shells and colorful pebbles and rocks with shapes in them. If Mary saw something interesting in a rock, she carefully chipped it out with a hammer. At the time, all these finds were called curiosities. So do you guys have any curiosities? Any rocks or feathers or leaves that you have? Scientists came to the Anning family shop to buy Mary's curiosities. From them, she learned about ancient mammals and plants. Mary discovered that several new kinds of prehistoric animals, including the first pterosaur ever found in England. Mary's brother Joseph found a huge skull. Together, they dug out the rest of the skeleton. Mary Anning looked at shapes to identify animals that lived long ago. In France, Georges Cuvier looked at fossils and compared them to animals that lived in his day. He looked for what was the same and what was different. As you can see down here some of his work. He's comparing different bones. Cuvier thought that some of the creatures must have disappeared or become extinct. Can you say extinct? He had discovered a skeleton of a mosasaur, a swimming reptile. He knew that creatures like it were no longer alive anywhere. Cuvier believed that a huge disaster must have happened on Earth to destroy living things like the mosasaurs. This was the first time that people had considered extinction. The word dinosaur was introduced by an English scientist, Sir Richard Owen. It means fearfully great lizard. Later, people realized that dinosaurs are not lizards. Owen studied to be a medical doctor, but became interested in animals. When an animal died at the London Zoo, he was allowed to take it apart and study it. Owen used what he learned to look at fossils of bones and teeth from animals that lived long ago. This helped him imagine what these animals might have looked like. Owen worked with an English sculptor, Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins. They built the first life-size dinosaur models. Charles Doolittle Walcott also grew up in New York and was a fossil collector when he was young. Later, Walcott found the famous fossil location in the Canadian Rockies called the Burgess Shale. Shale is a kind of rock. Walcott used dynamite to blast the rock apart. He mapped what fossils were found in the different rock layers. This was his field diary. When he was out looking at the rock and looking for fossils, he would write notes. Charles Walcott was a paleontologist. When you say paleontologist? The scientific study of life on our planet using fossils as clues is called paleontology. Paleo means ancient. Paleobiologists study animal life forms or organisms. They usually work with animals. Paleobotanists study ancient plants, flowers, and trees. Some fossils are so tiny they can only be studied using microscopes by micropaleontologists. Paleontologists often travel by plane or jeep to remote places searching for fossils. When they find a good spot, the lead scientists must get permission to dig on the land. Then they must raise money for equipment, food, and shelter for the dig crew. A dig crew is made up of scientists and students. Sometimes people volunteer to help, but they have to be ready to camp. Today, paleontologists use computers for their work, but they also use many of the same tools that early fossil hunters did, including stone hammers and brushes. If a dig crew finds a large fossil, paleontologists may use a drill or pickaxe to chisel and carefully separate the fossil from the larger rock. They make detailed drawings of what fossils look like in the rock. That way, they know the original location of all the fossil parts. Then very slowly, they begin to chip away at the rock surrounding the fossil. When most of the rock is gone, they use small picks, brushes, and even toothbrushes to remove the dust and rock bits. Photographs are taken at every stage. When the fossil has been safely removed, it is packed up carefully. It will be sent to a university or museum for further study. Hopefully, a truck can make it to the dig site. If not, then the fossil crates are pushed and pulled on sleds until they can be more easily transported. Whole fossil skeletons are rarely found. Most fossils are bits and pieces that have to be put together like a puzzle, but each small bit is saved. It might be the missing piece of a bigger skeleton already discovered. Here are some interesting fossils that we have found, that have been unearthed. So a starfish, mammoth hair, over here is giant sloth poop, dinosaur eggs. So let's review some of the words that we learned in the book. Decayed, broken down over time and fallen apart. Extinction, an event when one type of living thing dies. Paleontology, the study of life on Earth using fossils. And sediment, sand, mud, silt, or clay.